So before I start the meeting, I'd like to welcome Remco Bromett, chaplain for the City of Milton, Police and Fire Department, to provide us with an invocation.
Thank you. Let's pray together. Our God, you have been called an ever-present help in times of need, and we thank you for your ever-presence. We invite it into our meeting tonight and pray that you give to the council and the city staff assembled here tonight the ability and the wisdom to govern and guide the affairs of this city for the well-being of its citizens and for the good of the future of this community. We ask that you bless our city and its inhabitants with well-being and love and grace, and that you be close to those that are hurting. We ask for your protection on the city with your ever-presence, and that you give those who guard over her tonight and respond to its emergency strength and courage and protection. In your mighty name we pray. Amen.
All right, I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Milton City Council for Monday, August 4th, 2014 to order. Will the city clerk please call the roll and make general announcements?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I'll be happy to call roll for the August 4th, 2014 regular meeting. I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. Those attending the meeting who would like to provide public comment either during the public hearing or during the call for public comment, you're required to complete a public comment card prior to speaking on an item. There is no public comment for consent agenda items or items under first presentation. Those called to speak will be taken in the order that the speaker cards are received by the city clerk staff prior to the beginning of tonight's meeting. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization if applicable. The City Council may allow public comment on either an agenda item or general public comment from a representative of such an organized group or association, provided that such an individual shall file a notarized affidavit that they have the authority to speak on behalf of said organization on a form provided by the city clerk prior to the agenda item being called. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited, so please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outbursts, or dialogue with any person speaking. Please show the same respect to the person speaking that you will expect to receive yourself. Anyone in violation will be asked to leave. As I call roll this evening, please confirm your attendance. Councilmember Karen Thurman.
Here.
Councilmember Bill Lusk.
Here.
Councilmember Bert Hewitt.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Joe Longoria.
Here.
Councilmember Rick Morick.
Here.
For the record, Councilmember Matt Kuntz and Mayor Lockwood are absent this evening. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so I've got a section here that says mayor comments, and I don't want to take away anything that Joe would normally say. I'd just make the observation, I have no idea how it's August already. School's getting ready to start again. The year's more than half over, and I'm still thinking for some reason it's March. So there you go. Will the city clerk please sound the next item?
Our next item this evening is approval of the meeting agenda. Agenda item number 14214.
The only additions we have to that is staff would recommend that we have an executive session to discuss litigation and land acquisition.
Can I get a motion to approve the meeting agenda then?
I'll make a motion that we approve the meeting agenda with the addition of an executive session for litigation and land acquisition.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we've got a motion to approve the meeting agenda with the additions mentioned, second by Mr. Lusk. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes unanimously. Let's see here. The next item is public comment. Public comment is a time for citizens to share information with the mayor and the city council and to provide input and opinions on any matter that is not scheduled for its own public hearing during today's meeting. There is no discussion on items on the consent agenda or first presentation from the public or from the council. Each citizen who chooses to participate in public comment must complete a comment card and submit it to the city clerk. Please remember that this is not intended to engage the mayor or the members of the city council in conversation. When your name is called, please step forward and speak into the microphone stating your name and address for the record. You will have 5 minutes for your remarks. City Clerk, is there any public comment?
We do not have any public comment.
All right. Moving on to the consent agenda, will the City Clerk please sound the items?
Our first item is approval of the June 16th, 2014 City Council regular meeting minutes, agenda item number 14215. Next, approval of the July 7th, 2014 City Council regular meeting minutes, agenda item number 14216. Next, approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Milton and Timothy Hawes and Associates, Inc. to provide professional architectural services for the planning of parking facilities in the Crabapple area. Agenda item number 14217. Our fourth consent agenda item is approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Milton and Moreland Altobelli Associates, Inc. for a Birmingham Road Bridge design, 3 locations. Agenda item number 14218. Next, approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Milton, Lane Inliner LLC for cured in place pipelining, Nix Road and Glen Creek Way. Agenda item number 14219. Our sixth consent agenda item this evening is approval of a settlement on the consent final order and judgment of the condemnation of 0.277 acres of right-of-way, 0.119 acres of temporary construction easement, and 0.030 acres of temporary driveway easement at Parcel 4 on Hopewell Road from Robert R. Griselle, Mortgage Electronic Registration Systems, Inc., Branch Banking and Trust Company, and Arthur E. Ferdinand as Fulton County Tax Commissioner in the amount of $25,000. Agenda item number 14220. Next is approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Milton and Tennell Spangler and Associates, Inc. for the purpose of providing professional planning services for the Arnold Mill Corridor and Route 9 North Study areas. Agenda item number 14221. Our eighth and final consent agenda item this evening is approval of the following subdivision plats. Blue Valley Phase 1. Revision, add Lot 98, correct area of 2.59 acre common area. Heritage at Crabapple, revision. Correct side setback on west line of Lot 49, revise lot lines of lots 45 and 46 to create an additional common area. Adjust private DE across lots 45, 46, and common area. Two Fields Farm, minor subdivision plat, create 2 lots. Deerfield Green, Phase 4, final plat, create 81 lots. Cochran Place, minor subdivision plat, create 2 lots. Hayfield Subdivision Extension, Phase 2, final plat, create 21 lots. Agenda item number 14222.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve the consent agenda as prepared by staff.
I'll second.
All right, we've got a motion to approve by Councilmember Lusk and a second by Councilmember Hewitt. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That carries. So next we move on to reports and presentations. Will the city clerk please sound the next item?
Our next item is discussion of park field services. This is being presented by Mr. Jim Craig.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. What I'd like to do now is hand out the copy of the PowerPoint that you're about to see.
David, we have no PowerPoint here.
Hit the source button.
Which one? I've hit every button twice.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's just messed up. Hammer. Oh, the cable's unconnected in the back.
Get you every time.
Oh, what's that other cable?
That's
No, the one that's sitting there dangling on the table.
That's for court.
Oh,
Extra pieces.
Red button to the jail.
Well, I got that.
Ejection seat.
It does that every time, so. Yeah.
it's dead, Jim?
That-
Wait till
All
it
right,
comes
Jim,
up
I
on
think the
screen.
chaos has subsided now.
Good.
We're good.
I'm waiting for David to bring it up on the screen. All right. You may recall at the last council meeting, there was a discussion that came up about the idea of possibly changing the design of the project to add a second synthetic turf field. And folks asked us to come back with some more information, study the issue a little bit more. This is the response to those requests. Hopefully, this covers all of your issues. I'm not going to read the whole presentation, and an AIM drone can do that, but essentially what we have here, the installation costs. The current contract we have includes the cost for one field to be synthetic turf and the west field, east field to be synthetic, the west field to be natural grass. And so we looked at the option of what it would take to add a second turf field. There's an incremental cost of $380,000 plus a slight engineering fee to change the document drawings at this point. So we're talking roughly $384,000 total. First thing I did is I started seeking out some opinions, and honestly, there's quite a few opinions. There's a lot of people who consider themselves experts, and there are people who have a number of different opinions. I worked with two people who are well published in the industry, and I've spoken personally with both of these people. Professor Fresenberg, his big issue is you cannot justify a synthetic turf field simply on the cost of reduced maintenance. He did a study 12 years ago looking at the typical usage of a high school field, and he felt for the limited usage a high school field would get, a grass field would be better. When I quizzed him personally on the issue of this not being a high school field but a recreational field for a park, he said that's a big difference maker. He said because the real factor is the usage. The amount of usage a field gets directly impacts the amount of maintenance it needs. Natural grass requires far more maintenance than synthetic turf. And then I spoke with Ms. Amy Foudy, who is the sports turf manager at Michigan State, and her belief is that over a 10-year cost, when you factor in the higher cost of a synthetic turf field compared to the reduced cost of maintenance, she said it's pay me now or pay me later. Bottom line is it'll come out to be the same. She also noted that the big factor here is the usage of the field. So what are the maintenance factors? So what I did is I took a look, and not only my own analysis here, but I made it a point of consulting with 7 different agencies in the surrounding North Fulton area that have turfs to get their opinions on what are the actual components of maintenance of synthetic turf as well as what are the actual components of natural grass. And you can read them off if you like. And again, the variable of usage. I tried to get some actual analysis from different agencies, and not too many agencies operate the way we do, where everything is subbed out. And of course, every manufacturer of synthetic turf field was happy to give me a report that showed that it's better. But the challenge was to find something that was independent. So I went to the website of the American Society for Testing of Materials, ASTM. Believe it or not, they've done a study on this. And the numbers are here. Again, I can run through them if you like. But they had a series of variables And they had a couple of factors here. They did not include in their study the cost of water. I'd love to know why they didn't, because that's a big cost. But their website specifically shows does not include water. And they also acknowledge that while the typical cost of maintenance of fields should be around $50,000, they indicate most high school turf managers try to shortcut it. But again, they kept looking at high school fields, not recreation type fields. All right? And the other thing is a turf field could be used 365 days a year. You probably wouldn't, but you have to factor in, how much uses can you get. A grass field, you have a limited usage. You have periods that has to have downtime for regeneration and growth. The turf field is a continuous one. So this became the only analysis I could come up with that appeared to be independent of either a grass manufacturer or a turf manufacturer. So then I compared it to our own situation. Right now, we have a wonderful example at Northwestern Middle School. We're working very hard on the field there to try and maintain that at a very high standard that it should be maintained at if we're going to use this field. And Eagle Sticks and the city, we work together on that field. These are actual numbers I got from Eagle Sticks as to what it's costing them to maintain Northwestern Middle School. And there's the number 47,000. As far as the synthetic turf fields, obviously I don't have any real experience here in the city of Milton, but these numbers are an average of numbers I received from agencies around the community. Okay. Another question that came up, I believe was Councilman Lusk had asked about the disposal of synthetic fields. I'd like to report that I apparently misspoke at the last time, and that I had heard numbers of as high as $200,000. I am told that 10 to 12 years ago, that was considered a valid number. Today, it is not. I spoke directly with the Director of Operations at St. Pius X Catholic High School, which just had their field replaced. And he had it done, his disposal cost was approximately $50,000, and his replacement cost was approximately $310,000. There have been some changes in how turf fields are being disposed of. As more and more turf fields are being built, cottage industries involving turf field are being developed. There are machines now that can suck out the rubber infill and sell it back to the rubber companies, where they cleanse it, reprocess it, and make it available again. Machines currently today have an efficiency rate of about 50%. Also, there are companies that are developing ways to recycle the synthetic nylon. This is just a carpet. And so there's ways that's being developed. Other costs and factors to consider. The implementation, if we were to do it today, would cost about $380,000. The typical cost of retrofitting an existing irrigated grass field runs between $480,000 and $600,000. Again, getting my numbers from agencies I've been talking with. Roswell got it some numbers in low 400s, but they bought 7 at one time. So they had some volume pricing. Another thing I'd like to point out, the layout of the park as it is set right now, with the east field being the field that is grass, if we go to do that at a later time, the east field abuts Hopewell Road. It would, you can't operate from there. So we would have to operate either through the forested area or across the existing western field. So it would be, to change it at a later time will impact the operation of the park as it exists, as it will exist. I'd also like to point out, I was advised by the Parks and Recreation Board that in the last meeting they had before I joined the city here in July of 2012, they voted unanimously to recommend to council that if we build rectangular fields, make them synthetic turf. Also, in the last meeting we just had this previous month, they also voted unanimously to support synthetic turf at rectangular fields. Wanted to put together some utilization differences because we've been focused on the money. And again, I'll read them. You can point them out to you. It is a true statement that one of the issues with synthetic turf is that on very hot summer days, during the middle of the day, in the hottest point of the day, the field can get too hot to use. That's the nature of the product. It's not so much the rubber, it's the nylon. However, every agency I spoke with said the way they handle that is, in the summertime it's going to be hot, so you don't schedule activities from 1 to 4. You wait, you run activities up through the morning, and then you do activities in the afternoon, in the late afternoon, early evening. So from a weather perspective, you can anticipate that because you anticipate it's going to be hot. The big advantage that synthetic turf does is when it rains, you can immediately reuse the field. With a grass field, once it rains, you have to let it drain and then give the time for the soil to get hard enough to be safely used without tearing up the grass. And so when you have a grass field, you're always at risk by the weather. When you're at a natural grass field, a synthetic turf field, you can anticipate that you can go ahead and use it. The gentleman from St. Pius X, Tony Stevens, he said the best thing he got when he got synthetic turf is he got peace of mind. He always knew he would be able to have his functions when they were scheduled, unless, of course, it was lightning. In terms of the impact that would have on this city, well, Bell Park, as you know, is currently 4 baseball fields. But just a couple of stats for you. Bell Memorial, the Hopewell Youth Association, has not had a single practice made up that was lost due to rain since 2004. In terms of games, only this past spring were they able to have a couple of makeups, and that's because we opened up space at Hopewell Middle School. They had a total of 6 games made up this year. So since 2004 to 2014, any games that were rained out, all but 6 of them were lost. So I asked some of the other agencies, what does this mean here? Following this direct cut and paste from the city of Roswell, Parks Historic and Cultural Affairs, and these are the soccer coordinators and lacrosse coordinators, and they talked about the success they've had, how they have been able to save activities, practices, and games that otherwise would have been lost if it was a grass field. So rather than badger the point, we're out there and ask you folks if you have any questions for me, and I hope this has answered the questions that you asked of me.
Jim?
Yes, sir.
Could you tell me, right now the city has no rectangular fields in Bell Memorial Park.
That is correct.
So we may have access to rectangular fields in some of the fields that we
The school
have.
IGAs?
Exactly.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
So what's the demand? What's the current demand for rectangular field usage by all of the organizations that we support for the city?
It is overwhelming.
Okay.
It is overwhelming.
Do we have a number associated with
Well, let me put it like this.
Because 5 requests for somebody that has no fields is overwhelming. So
This is true.
What's the number?
I stopped tracking the number of people calling me asking for field space. Stopped that about a year or so ago. But I will tell you this. In terms of rectangular sports, they are the fastest growing sports in this area. 4 years ago, there was no lacrosse of any kind. Eagle Sticks was started, and they now support over 200 girls. Boys lacrosse was started 2 years ago. We now have over 250. The growth and demand for lacrosse and also the football, the demand is extreme. I've been advised to be prepared. Once we have these fields in place, get ready for people calling you. But I am routinely getting calls from people saying, hey, is there any space available to rent?
So the purpose of my asking the question
Yes,
is
sir.
if, let's pretend for a second that we had rectangular fields
Mhm.
that we could schedule. And let's say that we knew for a fact the clubs and the organizations and everybody that the city wants to support has a demand for 500 games
Mhm.
per year, 500 events per year where
Yes, sir.
they need to schedule that time. It would be real apparent real quick that one turf field and one grass field probably couldn't support that kind of volume or that demand.
That is correct.
Okay, so the idea that moving to a turf field is, for the second field, is sort of a requirement if we want to meet the demand, makes some sense. But lacking some empirical evidence as to what the demand is, we're sort of guessing on whether or not the second field as a turf field is justified.
I'm typically getting one request a week for rental field space.
Okay. Karen?
How would this work? Because I know that second grass field was supposed to be a dual-purpose field, so it would serve as a rectangular field at times and a diamond field. How does that work when you've got the turf, synthetic turf?
The idea there is that when the synthetic turf field is, they were talking the western field, in the spring programming cycle, that would be used as a baseball field, and then the back behind the fencing would be used for warm-up areas for baseball, or it could be used for other youth lacrosse-type activities. During summer and fall and winter, it would be converted back from a baseball field to a full-time rectangular field for lacrosse and football, which have their busy times in fall and into winter.
And so you can do that even with the synthetic field. You can still use it part-time as a diamond field.
Yes, absolutely.
Maybe a little more technical in Karen's question. There's a difference in grading in rectangular. Was it something I said?
It must have been. It must have been.
There's difference in grading
Yes.
or shape of rectangular fields as opposed to the baseball diamond.
Mhm.
How do you actually convert that from one to the other? Do you not have to tear out the pitcher's mound and regrade the field?
Great question. No, you don't have to regrade it. What we do is we would put a temporary mound out onto the turf to give you your pitcher's mound. Or if you're going to be planning on a youth sport of baseball up to age 8 where you don't have a pitching mound, then you don't need one. And we have an arc, it fits perfectly, of 200 feet. And we can put up temporary fencing. And then when we're done with baseball, you store the temporary fencing and you still have a football, lacrosse, and soccer field.
Got it. One other point. Good report. This is what I was looking for.
Thank you.
On your one sheet, maintenance cost estimates on an annual basis,
Yes, sir.
you mentioned you didn't have any actual costs on the synthetic turf fields. Is that correct to say?
I myself here in Milton don't have any because we don't have one. But I got these numbers from talking to Alpharetta, Roswell, Gwinnett, Cherokee County.
Okay. Well, there's one right across the road at Milton High School. I was wondering, have we approached them?
I did not approach the high schools because I was not trying to compare apples to apples in terms of recreational fields as compared to high school fields. My research showed that there's differences in usages of high schools versus recreational fields. The recreational field getting more usage. So I was trying to get as close to the same as I could.
Got it. One last question. You've been involved with Bell Memorial for the last, 10 or 15 years.
19.
Great effort.
Thank you.
What's your best guess as to the number, percentage-wise, of games that have been canceled due to foul weather?
That's a great question.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No. It's affected, of course, by is it a rainier summer, is it a rainier spring? This past spring, we did not lose a whole lot of games. We lost about, to my knowledge, and I'm not as into the operations in my current roles as I was before, but to my knowledge, they lost about 60 games this year. There have been seasons where they've lost over 200 games. Yes, sir. We had, I recall, one of my last seasons when I was president of the Hopewell Youth Association, there were so many games lost that parents were asking for refunds.
So Jim, in your best estimation, what do you think with our usage, maybe talking with the St. Pius fellow where he said he had it 8.5 years, using 360 days or events
Yes.
a year.
Mhm.
What do you think the field would last? When would we have to replace it?
Mr. Stevens said he easily could have gone 10 years. He said the reason he went 8.5 is he said, I'm not public money, I'm private money.
So he had it.
He said, we've got booster clubs, and we have coaches that are very proud of their field, and the parents raised the money, and he had an opportunity to get his done at a time that work was slow, and he took advantage of it. But he said he could have easily gone 10 years.
So you would say 10, you would throw 10 out.
That's correct. That's why I did my studies on 10 years.
So I would just, for our own edification, this ASTM report, showed the 10-year maintenance at 50 to 150. We probably need to bump that up, just for our own, if we wanted to think it to that 360 mark that they just paid at St. Pius. So that put that cost per event to about $210, just still cheaper than the others. With the better usage and more availability after rains and this, that, or the other of the turf field or the synthetic turf, would that bring for some of these groups that are looking for rental space and all this that we're not doing business with now, a premium in the marketplace for rent for the fields?
If I'm understanding your question, you're asking that if we have a field with higher utilization, could we charge more to people come in?
That they can use it 360 days a year.
I would think that if we were looking to use, get some rental income out of there, you can certainly charge more on a synthetic field than you can a grass, because again, you can assure people that they'd be able to actually make use of it, with the exception, of course, of lightning.
Sure. Okay, that answered my question.
So
I think that's a yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes. We will
Okay.
be able to adequately serve our programs that we run here in the city, and there'd be opportunities with additional space for rental income.
Okay, thank you.
Rick, you got any questions? Okay, yeah, so the other thing, the observation that I'll make, it isn't necessarily a question. There's a disjointed concept between the two, because normally if you look, the cost per event, which is how I was thinking about it from the get-go, I thought that the low-end cost of the grass field and the high-end cost of the turf field were going to be overlapping, and it turns out they're not. So even the worst-case scenario for one is better than the best-case scenario for the other, which I found very interesting. So.
Well, again, I did my best to get data that was not industry biased, and this information tends to match what I have received in talking to the operations people in these other agencies around here.
Okay. That was a good job on that.
I got one
Jim.
other.
Oh, okay.
Did we? I know we think we touched on it when we approved the construction contract. When would we need to execute a change order?
I'll defer to Mr. Lucas on that.
Didn't we talk about that maybe?
We did, and I talked to the contractor. He would need to know something probably by the next council meeting.
So we got plenty of time.
Right.
My only thought with that is, if we got into the project and ran into bad soils or something, and all of a sudden we have another change order that's going to eat up some monies, it doesn't sound like we have the luxury of waiting just a little bit to make sure things are going to go as we think they're going to go.
That's right. The grading and utilities associated with a synthetic turf field is a little bit different than the natural turf field, so he's got to get set up as he begins this project to be able to go one way or the other.
And that 380-ish includes that difference in that undercut, I guess, is the main.
It does.
difference, isn't it?
It does.
Bill?
Bert brings up a good point about unforeseen conditions. Have we done enough soil borings in that area to determine what the underlying soil is like? Are we going to run into rock?
The only borings that we did were on the old school property, and we didn't find anything on that particular piece. At the time, the other properties were occupied, so we did not do any specific borings out on the other properties that we purchased. So no, sir, I don't know that we won't, other than that we have not found any of that area so far.
May I add to that? The areas that the borings were done is the principal area that the rectangular fields would be going in. That's the most level area, and that's where we're intending to put the rectangular fields at the old school site.
Are they roughly close to grade where they're going, I mean, is the finished grade out there now close?
I don't know. Do you know off the top of your head?
There is some leveling has to come down, moving some of the dirt from up high down to another lower to help level out some of the other fields. But it is generally a flat area there, yes. But there will be grading work
Cutting
done
down in that area?
there. Yes,
Yeah.
there will be some grading.
So what do you need from us tonight? I know we'd have to vote on a change to the contract in the next council meeting. Is that what?
That's right.
You don't know whether or not you think there's votes to bring that
Or whether or
forward?
not to even bring a change order forward. Of course, you could vote no for it 2 weeks from now if we published it and you decided to change your mind. But I wasn't going to bring even a change order forward if all of a sudden I got the general direction from the council tonight that this was a bad idea. The thing that I'll say tonight and I'll say next week, that I think that the funding for this ad, if you decide to do it, has got to come from our reserve. I don't see how I just absorb a $383,000 construction increase from where we were at this point versus what we had budgeted. So if you're willing to spend this money out of the reserve or out of the fund balance, so to speak, then it's certainly a fine use of those funds. But that would be our recommendation as to where we look to find the money for this change if you choose you want to make it.
But we do have excess in the fund balance over what we need to keep for industry standards.
We do, keeping in mind that in the next 60 days we're about to go through a fiscal year 15 budget process, and you can only spend it once. So we'll have some discussions as to what those priorities are, what those other capital priorities are, as we decide what's the right amount to have in that fund balance. If this is a good expense, it comes with the prioritization of maybe not doing something else.
Okay. Do you have a sense of where we all stand here, Chris?
I think I do. Nope, I think I do. I don't need any more than what I've gotten so far, and I appreciate your interest and input.
Any other questions? All right, Jim, thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
All right, so moving on to first presentation, will the city clerk please sound the items?
First item is consideration of U1401, VC 1402, 14505 Batesville Road by LRF Milton LLC to operate a bed and breakfast, section 641802, with 4 guest rooms within an existing home and a concurrent variance to increase the building setback along Batesville Road from 20 feet to 400 feet, section 64-1145 3A. This is agenda item number 14223. Next, consideration of RZ 14-12 to amend Article 19 Crabapple Form-Based Code. Agenda item number 14224. And finally, consideration of RZ 14-13 to amend Article 20 Deerfield Form-Based Code. Agenda item number 14225.
Can I get a motion and a second on the approval of readings of the first presentation items?
I'll make a motion that we approve the first presentation items as read.
Second. I've got a motion from Councilmember Thurman. I've got a second from Councilmember Morick. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. All right, will the clerk please sound the items under public hearings?
This item is under third public hearing, consideration of an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Milton, Georgia, to establish the ad valorem tax rate of the city of Milton for fiscal year 2014 and for other purposes. Agenda item number 14194. First presentation and first public hearing was heard at the July 7th, regular City Council meeting. Second public hearing was held at the July 21st regular City Council meeting. Ms. Stacy Inglis.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. What you have before you, again, like she said, this is the third and final public hearing that we are required to hold by, according to the Official Code of Georgia 48-5-32. The next item on the agenda will be consideration of an ordinance to approve the millage rate. Taxes are still projected to be mailed around the 1st of September. I believe that Fulton County will be approving, hopefully, their millage rate on Wednesday of this week. I will keep close tabs on that. From what I understand, if everything goes well at that meeting, and if the Department of Revenue approves or certifies their tax digest, then we should have everything we need by the end of August and in time for September 1st billing. I will keep you updated. If the bills are mailed out on September 1st, then the taxes will be due on October 31st, or at least the first weekday that we have. Because I believe October 31st may be on a Saturday. I'm not sure. Anyway, so the total tax digest that we have is $2,112,490,166. That is estimated assessments. Total taxes levied will be $9,994,191, and that is for both property taxes and motor vehicle taxes. Property taxes include real and personal property, and it's around $9.5 million, and motor vehicle taxes around $500,000. So the property tax increase is due to an inflationary reassessment of existing property. We are showing a 4.17% increase due to the inflationary reassessments. When coupled with the upsurge in the digest for newly improved properties, the overall taxes levied will be 8.1% higher than 2013. And please understand, this is not a millage rate increase. The millage rate of 4.731 mils is the same rate the city has had since our first tax billing in 2007. I will be happy to answer any questions at this point.
Does the council have any questions for staff?
Just to be clear, the assessments come from Fulton County as well.
Correct.
So we are just simply adjusting our assessments to those.
Yes.
And using the same millage rate we have since we started.
Correct.
Well, I found the use of the term inflationary interesting because if you look back far enough, we're just returning to the values that we had 5 years ago.
Exactly.
Would you be willing, real quickly, just to call for public comment
Yeah,
on the public
I was
hearing?
going to do that next, Chris.
Okay, thank you.
Sudie, do we have any public comment?
We do not, sir.
Okay, so then I'd say the public hearing is now closed. So is there any additional discussion from the council on this? All right, hearing none, let's move on. There are no ideas under the zoning agenda. Moving on to unfinished business, will the city clerk please sound the items?
Consideration of an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Milton, Georgia, to establish the ad valorem tax rate of the city of Milton for fiscal year 2014 and for other purposes. Agenda item number 14194. First presentation and first public hearing heard at the July 7th regular city council meeting. Second public hearing was held at the July 21st regular city council meeting. The third public hearing was held today, August 4th. Ms. Stacy Inglis.
So we are requesting that you approve a 4.731 millage rate, and that is what our budget is based on and what we've presented in our 3 public hearings. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Can I get a motion on this?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'll move to approve an ordinance, the mayor and city council of the city of Milton, Georgia, to establish the ad valorem tax rate of the city of Milton for fiscal year 2014 and for other purposes. Agenda item number 14-194.
Second?
I've got a motion from Councilmember Lusk, a second from Councilmember Thurman. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes.
Thank you.
All right, there are no items under new business. Moving on to mayor and council reports. I have no report. I'd just been in the position so little time. I just didn't have anything prepared. Chris.
Okay, a couple of updates tonight, and I want to be able to see everybody when I actually give these updates. We're moving into that time of year that we're really going to be knee-deep in budget, so we'll start to talk about that next Monday at the council meeting. Be prepared to come talk about capital projects and their priorities, and I'll try to get something out to you later this week so that maybe I can have something in your hands that you can at least react to so that we have a good discussion on Monday. Let me get real quickly to what I just passed out to you. This is one that I'll need you to spend some time thinking about and then give me some direction as to what you want to do. This is a staff report that comes from Forsyth County. It's of a project that is at our borders up off of Shirley Industrial Boulevard or Way, or it's up there near Francis Road, almost coming into Milton, the side, coming into the eastern side of Milton. There's a request to increase the size of an existing waste facility that is up there to increase the intensity of the use, to even include a couple of different types of mixed trash, drop off there where trash will come and be sorted and will leave that facility. Long story short is I want to know if this council wants to take a perspective on this particular project. We could certainly bring forward a resolution 2 meetings from now in either support or in opposition of it. I believe as you read through it that you'll see that there's a statement made by Forsyth County that the proposed conditional use would be suitable in view of the zonings of the surrounding properties. I don't necessarily believe that to be true. I think when you take a heavy industrial use like this and stick it up against our agricultural use, that doesn't hardly seem suitable. But I guess what I'd ask for you to do at this point is take a read through the staff report. I've got you a copy of the site plan as well as a staff analysis. We had our staff do a quick analysis of what it was and whether or not we thought it would fit. If you all decide that you want to weigh in, I'll bring forward a resolution. And if you adopt that and also give our staff the authority to then deliver that resolution and speak publicly at the Planning Commission, that would be what I would be looking for. That is the one opportunity there is to weigh in on this. There is no comment that's afforded at the commission meeting itself, so our one opportunity to weigh in is at the Planning Commission. We believe we have until September before that hearing will be held. So the timing's right. I just kind of want to know from the council whether or not you want to get involved in this application that is at our border. So everybody, any questions on that? Sir.
Yeah, Chris, are you aware of any, because I tried to do a little research on this and it was very difficult at best because obviously this is a zoning issue that exists within Forsyth County and we're in Fulton County, so we don't have any way of influencing what they're saying. But is there for lack of a better term, a buffer area associated with zonings that are in such conflict with existing use when the borders for two counties come close together?
There's not, and uniquely our voice penetrating into a different county is sometimes diluted simply
Right.
because we're trying to influence a action that we really have no influence over other than the political influence that a council can put upon another elected body. So no, there's not a required buffer. There is a buffer that's planted out there. You'll see in our staff review that the buffer that was required is in fact existing. But it's taking this request is taking a pretty intense use and really intensifying it.
Yeah, I mean, because there's a train of thought that says they're really not zoning something on their property. They're zoning it on ours because it's adjacent to our property. And so for some...
It will impact our residents more so than it will
Right.
theirs, because we just happen to have more residents close to that vicinity.
And you'll see when you read their staff report that the area that this is being requested is in keeping with their future land use map as well as their comprehensive plan. So, is this a very supportive staff report and kind of puts the commission in a very tough spot to say anything other than support. If it's in your comprehensive plan and part of your future land use map, as you all know, we make those decisions where as offensive as something might be, if at one point you put on paper that it's okay for this type of use to be there, you kind of have to do that. But I think it's very important, though, that we look at this one as hard as we can and do the best we can do to advocate for our citizens that are directly affected. Okay. All right. So where we'll go with this is if you could just provide me some feedback as to what you want to do by next Monday at the work session, If the feeling is that you want to weigh in, we will then author a resolution and bring it forward at the next council meeting 2 weeks from tonight. Okay. Other things I want to remind you of is that we have a Bell Park groundbreaking this Friday at 11 o'clock. I hope you all can attend. Just by way of a couple of updates for you, staff will be visiting Cobb County this week to look at their permitting process. It's been talked about as being one of the easiest permitting processes to go through, so we're going to spend some time seeing it in person. And good news, as of yesterday, the final permits were received, and all of the sites have been locked down and permitted for, finally, our public safety radio system to be built. So all of the permits are in at this point. Now it's a matter of awarding bids and going to construction. So you should see that project really take some speed here in the near future. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. We probably have a longer executive session tonight than we actually had meeting, so we've got a good bit to talk about there.
I'm sorry, could you be clear? Must not have been listening too carefully. The last topic that you mentioned there, what permits for what project?
Oh, that's the public safety radio system. You know, we've been talking about replacing it, and finally, all the FAA permits are in, allowing for the towers, not necessarily the ones in Milton, but to make the system work. The ground leases or leases are secured, so we now have a real project that has real sites, so that we can now move from planning to implementation.
Thank you.
All right, I really didn't ask earlier if there were any council reports, so does anyone have anything they want to report on? Okay, good.
Just
Yes, sir?
my friend Pete Van Weeren, the voice of the Braves, passed away Saturday.
Sad.
All right, so we're ready to adjourn and move into
Make
executive
a motion
session.
that we adjourn to executive session,
Second motion.
Litigation and
litigation and land acquisition.
I've got a motion and a second to adjourn into executive session pending, to discuss pending litigation and land acquisition. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes.
And remember, we're going through
Test, test, test. Test, test. Test 1, 2, test. test, test.
All right, do
It's
I have
loud
a
down here, Dave.
Motion to reconvene.
So moved.
Readjourn, reconvene.
Do we
Well, I
have?
put a re
I guess
in
we've
front
got
of it
everybody
and all.
but Rick.
Second? Anyone?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
The one last staff report that I failed to make earlier that I just want to bring to your attention deals with the whole buzzword we have going on right now about conservation subdivisions. And what I'd like to do is I've sent you an email. What I'd like to do is I'd like to just remove the ordinance that has currently come forward to the Planning Commission. I'd like to just withdraw it from the process, essentially regroup and come back with something different. But I kind of need the direction of the council to do that because I need to be able to go to the Planning Commission and say, Planning Commission, we'd like to officially just withdraw this from the zoning process, the text amendment process, so that we can regroup and bring something different forward after availing ourselves to some consulting or other services that get us to a conservation subdivision ordinance that we like. So is that what I need, Ken? I basically just need the council to say, yeah, that's the direction. We're okay withdrawing it, and we'd ask you to withdraw it so that then I can officially go to the Planning Commission and ask them to do the same.
Well, I'd rather do that than continually,
Extend it out.
The reality is that we've still got people that are taking the
Right.
one that's out there and they're like providing feedback on it. And I keep telling them, you really don't, that's not going to come forward in its current fashion eventually. So I think we're doing a better service to our citizens if we just pull the plug on it and come back with something different.
I agree.
I agree.
So what's the plan if we do that? Are we going to go into community information meetings?
What we're going to do is we're going to wait and have this green print come back on September the 15th and see what it recommends.
The what?
The green print. And see what it recommends. And if this is one of the things that it recommends, then I'll bring forward a recommendation on how we get something done.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. That's what I needed to be able to direct the Planning Commission. Thank you.
All right.
I'll move to adjourn the regular council meeting.
Second?
I got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?